the nature of art can be described in terms of four eyes, like an eye that can open, and I call them the sacred eye, the humanist eye, the anti-humanist eye, and the eye of power. And the ideal, so the ideal here is basically to have as broad of a definition of art as possible. Our usual definition of art is very restrictive, limited, and in particular limited to a certain period of time. So like the types of art that I think that are most valorized as art, or even like thought of by most people intuitively, even philosophers, as like they are what art is, they are humanist or anti-humanist. And probably the anti-humanist eye is the most privileged one, especially in the art world. And I wrote a text about this topic and outlined three basic types of each of these four types of art, or three basic modalities. For anti-humanist art, they are outrage, expression, and critique is, I think, what I called the third one. I obviously should have that on the top of my head, but I only used this formulation one time, and I actually went back to it and I forgot I had even written it. But I really like the formulation, so I'm kind of trying to resurrect it here. So outrage is an impulse to defy convention. So originality, basically. And the type of work that people at first respond to by declaring that, like, it doesn't count, that you've gone too far, this isn't art. We all know what I'm talking about. And then there's expression, which is different from outrage in that it has more to do with a person's interiority. So like, I have my demons and I need to get this out, to process something that happened to me, or a state of affairs that's unjust or unfortunate. And that's different from outrage in that it is oriented towards the individual experience. And this is also very familiar, sort of the tortured artist. Whereas outrage is more oriented towards the social bond, like challenging convention. And then 3 is critique, and this, or no, I call it aristocracy, actually, not critique. Aristocracy is a sense of distance from normal morality or the normal run of things. Where it's like expressive and outrage modes of art can be part of this, but there's something about like preserving a small community and shielding it from like not casting its pearls before swine or something like that. So there's a kind of weak messianism in that. Yeah, like being oriented towards like a decentralized community, something like an avant-garde or a scene. Okay, so that's anti-humanist. And then humanist art is also generally understood to be art, but maybe it's generally considered a bit more like lowbrow or at least middlebrow, like film in general, and shows. So art that people like, not because of not because of anything combative or like a concept, but just because it's good. You know, they enjoy it, like Lord of the Rings or something like that. Or there are three modes here. They are flourishing, mastery, and rendering. And you can think of rendering in terms of like, you know, like say just like kind of like the iconic, just like Michelangelo type of thing of like, oh wow, like what a, you know, you copied that so well, like that looks perfect, that looks so realistic, you know. That is a legitimate kind of vector of just showing something as beautiful, you know, imitating nature. So everyone knows that is also kind of an old school way of seeing art that presents itself as being a bit outdated perhaps, but is still legitimate. Mastery is excelling at something, which is different from rendering in that like it's generally kind of like a great achievement. So maybe like a big epic, you know, a blockbuster film, that like makes a lasting impact and like maybe becomes a cultural myth or something. And then flourishing has to do with like integrating into the social fabric. So you know, succeeding at a popular level, and with this idea that like it's just healthy, you know, that like that like just new variety coming into the world is good, and there's this implicit march of progress underlying the humanist scheme. And I just think of the Renaissance when I think of this. You know, it's just like, yeah, like we're just gonna make things better and more beautiful and more wonderful. So these two are secular. They presuppose like a market, either like a ticket buying public, subscribers, or collectors of like luxury goods. But in both of these cases, it's like the artist is supposed to be some kind of genius in a way, and then they are ultimately getting paid for making an impact in some kind of market, and like exciting people, maybe transforming them, but it's like it's still in this like sphere where there are canons, and there's a difference between art and life here, even though the idea of challenging the barrier between art and life is of interest, especially to anti-humanist art, and even challenging the idea of the genius or the original artist. It still ultimately it sort of gains momentum only in an aesthetic sphere that is separated off from like starting a society, or like being a government or something like that, or like a war, or it's not like creating a world. It's not creating a world that actually has like a concrete structure. It's still representation. So then there's the sacred eye and the eye of power. And the sacred eye has the relic, the prayer, and the icon. And so religious art and religious architecture, religious poetry, literal prayers and stuff like that, they're not so concerned with history or a canon, or innovating, or even really doing anything new or being the best. They're you would almost say functional, that they the icon is something that as you contemplate it, you become divinized. The relic recalls to memory a sacred event, a miracle. So it sort of continues the power of the miracle by memorializing it, repeating it, kind of a shockwave. And then the prayer sort of creates like a self-sustaining rhythm. And the point, like you can of course analyze this in sociological or anthropological terms about social cohesion or social domination also, but putting that aside, or at least bracketing it, there's a sculpting of the soul that's going on, and it really is art. It's the same type of genius that makes works like this, but it's not valorized in the same way. And then the eye of power is like, but basically just succeeding at anything. So charisma, integrity, and there's a third one that I can't bring to mind easily, but where any kind of project is going on and you are able to stay motivated by the project, get people excited about it, get them to cohere around it, and then to create genuine value that is like a surplus above what was put into it. And maybe in some ways this is the most original, perhaps the most like rudimentary form of art. Like it's easy to imagine that this is kind of like the true like nuts and bolts of what it is to have a society at all. Like if you don't already have like a big like state apparatus, and there's just sort of a group of people who are seeking to thrive, and then maybe this was the original one. Maybe it was always very closely related to the sacred one, but there's maybe more of a power imbalance in the sacred one. The sacred I kind of, but people who really believe in the primacy of the sacred version tend to be aligned with existing power structures. So it's kind of like the sacred is a re-territorialization of the creative impulse in a way that sustains a society rather than creating it, and then in like a capitalist context, then there's sort of another fold and another fold of on the one hand this kind of like industrial progress of humanism, and then arguably this is kind of a hermeneutic of suspicion towards anti-humanism, but that what anti-humanism really does is direct people's defiant impulses towards something that can then be siphoned back in to sort of energize that industrial process. Though I don't mean to be totally cynical about it. That certainly does happen to a degree, though I'm sure there's real spontaneity in it as well. And the point, as is often the point for me, is that it's important to think of these horizontally, even though I just kind of unfolded a like hypothetical historical development, that all four of these / 12 4 categories are available to the contemporary artist, and each should be appreciated for what it is, and that they should be combined in a way where they are able to coalesce rather than be at odds, and that true freedom depends on that, or true autonomy, or autonomy is a bit restrictive of a idea too, but true theonomy basically.